It's been a long time since I've made a video because I'm set on the path of becoming nobody, nowhere, in no time, in no space. And so I didn't really want to be a somebody doing something somewhere in some space. And so I made a deal with the universe, and I said, "Hey man, if I'll make another video if I get like 500 subscribers, and I don't have to put any effort into it. I don't want anything to do with anything like this." And you know, I ended up getting 500 subscribers, and then I was like, what am I gonna say? I'm working on some other realms and within myself, and then I got 1,000 subscribers, and then most recently I checked in, I've got like 1,300, making no effort at all. And so the thing is that I had to acknowledge, like, you know, it, you just can't ignore, the gifts from God. You want to be able to work with them, and and I have to embrace that and love that. And so that original video I made was for a girl who had asked me a question about breathing, and how to work with Dr. Joe and do some of these kinds of things. And so I made that video, and then I had done my own stuff with Wim Hoff and blah blah blah. But then I got a lot of questions, and the questions I always received were about the mechanics of it. And so one of the important things to recognize is that the mechanics of the biological system as you move energy are like the wheels on the bike. You need to have them moving in the right direction. You need to have the muscle memory. But the very thing that's asking the question about how do I do this correctly is the very thing that you're trying to overcome. It's the obstacle. So the analytical mind is that thing which we're trying to move past in order to open up the door. And so asking questions about the mechanics of things, that's good in one way, but the system is so simple, nature is so simple. And so the breathing as taught by Dr. Joe and Wim Hof, and you guys can figure that stuff out and understand what it is. And if you've been doing that work, then that's kind of where I'll pick up here. I'm not going to explain those techniques. Those are the techniques of those teachers, and I learned everything I know from them about the breathing, and there's a lot of other systems and all of that. But assuming that you've been doing that, there are results that come thereafter once you dive deep into that kind of stuff. And one of them, for me about 3 years ago was my body would, they call it, Dr. Joe, they say like pop or whatever. And but essentially you start to get lit up. The energy that moves from that lower center, pop up through your neck. And so handling that is something that when I looked around, and even in the Dr. Joe community there, in like the Wim Hof community there, I would look for answers on these things, and I kind of went through it alone. At that time, not a lot of people were even up to speed with, Dr. Joe's most simple work, or like Wim Hof, how deep you could take that. They were just kind of starting to absorb it intellectually. They hadn't absorbed it experientially. So that's kind of where I want to pick up. If you have been doing this kind of stuff and you're starting to get into those unseen realms, and you're starting to activate these centers, and you're starting to have the visceral responses to the activations of those centers, those are the people I want to speak to, and to try to help them. I just want to drop some breadcrumbs, because I went through a tremendous physical transformation. I went through a tremendous mental strain understanding these things, and who knows where I'll take this, but I want to be able to help you guys out if that's what's going on for you from my own personal experience. And I just know that that stuff's not out there right now, at least not in the way that I'm going to put it out there to you. So as that energy ascends through your body doing this breath work and tuning in and opening up and all this stuff that you've been taught, and and it doesn't even have to apply to the work with Dr. Joe, it can apply to any kind of real deep energetic work where you're opening up these basically subtle organs. You're opening up, you're tuning your subtle bodies to this greater field of energy. And as you do that, that energy moves up through the body and rises into the head, as everybody knows, and then we can circulate it. We can do things like that. But especially, I mean, about the first 18 months of that experience for me was extremely visceral. And I would have a meditation within 30 seconds, my body would just be hit with like these convulsions, these hard, long, 45 minutes of, my body basically seizing. And there's things I learned along that way. And one of the things I noticed was that in those communities or these people that talk about Kundalini and all this kind of shit, it's like they're going, talking about bliss. And for me, there was moments, but the majority of it was filled with uncertainty and a lot of lower astral forces, these kinds of things. And so I didn't hear anybody talking about that. I'm like, what to do? Along with it, I became extremely sensitive and aware. I've always been empathic, but that even upgraded or leveled up in the sense where, it became confusing with the sensitivity to the energies, and then my internal world, that mind's eye, opened up to such a degree where there was a state where it was like dreaming. I was continuously dreaming while my eyes were open, and so I'd go out and my mind's eye was just so vivid, and it was confusing, and I could see a lot of stuff. I could see stuff off people and feel things, and a lot of it was the lower realms. Man, there's a lot of that going on out there. So that was really hardcore. And so one of the things I wanted to pass on, and like as I understood my energetic anatomy, as I understood what was going on, as I learned about these things from just doing the experiential work, figuring it out for myself. One of the things that was like a little breadcrumb that really started to change things for me was like, why is this system shaped the way it is? And then as you open up and your perception opens up and you can see those other realms, people talk about protection and all these kinds of things, like, but what is it really going on? And at least for me, and one of the things I discovered was that, and this is for you if you're sensitive or if you're like dealing, especially right now, because we're at like the matrix, man. Matrix is unraveling. So there's all kinds of things I could say about that, but keeping it simple for now. So it's like that energy, like let's say you were in that sensitive state and your mind's eye is open and you're feeling very calm, you're cool in the gang, and then you go out or you're around somebody and they're like, you can just feel it. You're like, oh man, this person's a vampire, dude. I get it. Or they got some kind of thing hanging on them. They're trying to get to me, and you can feel that pressure. I mean, everybody relates to it differently, but you can feel the pressure on your chi bubble, and you can kind of feel that trying to come into you. And then sometimes it'll get in up here, and there's different ways that they try to pop in there. But one of the things I learned was that mostly those lower frequencies, those lower astral entities, and the personality types that they influence, hang out in that lower triad, that below your your heart center. So one of the places that they're going to get into you, and one of the things you can do to pop them off and to fortify and become strong, like man, yeah, like real strong, is to do the basic, that perineum, second, third. Okay, so it's like I feel that you can feel that influence, you can feel that thing around you, and contract your perineum, and then squeeze and pull. But you have to do this like muscle memory. So you come in contact with something, and you're like, I want to shake it off, or you maybe say a prayer, Jesus, whatever, which is also, that's the real deal as well. But what the thing is that that's your body, that's your subtle organs working within your physical anatomy, and that's going to calm the nervous system down. But also in the astral realm, when you draw that energy up and you learn how to use that properly, that fortifies you. And they don't want you to be able to do this, my friends. They do not want you to be able to do this, because this is how you become empowered. So you get the things that's kind of triggering you. You can feel those forces, and right away, before getting intellectual and going, what can I do? What should I do? Do I call my spirit guide, or whatever you're into at the moment? The first thing to do is draw that energy right from the perineum. That is like a fire, okay? And so that fire is going to move up through and into this third center. And if you can, and typically people get caught there, but if you can then manage to draw some of that fire up into your heart, it will start to radiate out. This is not a one-off thing. You're going to need to practice and understand your own energy system. But what will happen if you do that is that those lower astral forms can no longer have influence over your mental states, your emotional states, the way that they once did. And say they really don't want you to know this. They don't want you to be able to do this. They don't want you to understand your energetic anatomy. It's important. So you come across somebody or something, or pops in on you in your house or whatever it is. The first, instead of going into the intellectual state of a prayer or something that's in English in your mind, draw energy up. The knee-jerk reaction is pull up, and that's why that Wim Hof stuff is super cool, because you learn how to move your breath like, and you draw that energy up all in one thing, and you hold it, and you can just feel and radiate without the mind. Radiate in the simple presence of that energy, and don't try to direct it. Don't try to do anything with it. Just understand that it's more important that we get it up here, right? So we're going to draw the energy up here, and then you're going to let the energy rise over into the back of your head. And so that's a simple thing along the way, that if you're doing this kind of stuff and you're facing these things, and I remember for me, like, it got so out there. My whole mind was continuously in a prayer. That was the only way I could keep it from, dude, the chaos of like the frequencies that were around just on Earth. When I opened up to that, was just mind-boggling. So anywhere from like hearing people's thought patterns, that seems like that was almost like child's play compared to the shit that was going on for me. It was like hearing multiple dimensional spaces and just very far out stuff. And so my mundane mind, my default mode, I needed to focus on something that was like just simple, So I would just keep my mind on God. I'd say stuff like, behold the glory of God, or um, the expression of um, the glory of God being within my body. And so I would keep my mind set on that, right? Because it got so crazy out there that became like the way that I would bounce all, keep my mind at least center so I could do this other stuff. That's my puppy Fletch. So the idea being that you can use this breath work to actually navigate that astral field. So you don't need to have like little trinkets and things to protect you. You don't necessarily, I'm not saying not to, but you are the actual presence and power. So the idea that it's nice to call out and say, hey, spirit guide, I need you. I get it, man. You got to comfort yourself. But you're the actual one, right? So understanding that those things are there to support you, but it's your subtle body and it's your physical anatomy, and you are the one who is going to empower yourself and learn how to move these energies, and they don't want you to know. They don't want you to be able to do that. So that's what you're awakening to. And anyway, it's been a long time. I hope this helps. And